Lesson 8. The 19th century in Europe was marked by many revolutions and wars, which gave rise to the nations we know today. But the change from kingdoms to nations in Europe was not exclusively due to these revolutions and wars. It was made possible by a radical change in thinking that began at the end of the 18th century and which eventually defined what nations were. Rather than being a group of people defined as subjects of the same king, the nation was represented as a group of people who were conscious of their historical, social, and cultural unity and willing to live together as a community. Such consciousness did not develop quickly or naturally. It was constructed in the course of the 19th century. To make nations into self-conscious communities, a common language, a collective history, and shared traditions had to be created. Throughout Europe, the formation of a common language was a necessary condition for making a nation. Sometimes it was a matter of making a pre-existing language more popular, either among the common people, in the case of France, or among the elite, in the case of Germany. In some cases, a written language already existed, but was old and insufficient and had to be made modern and adequate for a variety of uses, as in the case of Italian. In other cases, the written language was used only in religious texts, and the modern national language was constructed from a regional language spoken by the people, as in the case of Finnish. As a result of one or more of these processes, the French today speak, read, and write French, Swedes Swedish, and Poles Polish. Nor did nations at the dawn of the 19th century yet have histories. It was only in the subsequent decades that intellectuals wrote the history of each community through the ages. National history highlighted important events and people that provided lessons and models for future challenges. It created a collective memory which was spread through elementary schools and also through literary and artistic works. The historical novel, introduced by the writer Walter Scott, was effective in spreading an emotional appreciation of national history and identification with its heroes throughout the population. The historical paintings of the 19th century played the same role. Reproduced on domestic objects, such as plates and cups, they made national history a part of private life. In addition, historic monuments were also created from old buildings. Many scholars and painters devoted themselves to determining which buildings illustrated national history and deserved the devotion of the community, that is, the nation. Not only was history written, artworks created, and historic monuments named to give meaning to a nation, but nature was also described in national terms, making it possible to refer to national landscapes. The national landscape of Austria was the Alps, and that of Hungary, the Great Plain. Norway was represented by fjords, and Sweden by green forests. Trees were the symbols of other national landscapes: Russian birches, German oaks, and Italian cypresses. Such scenic images were promoted in literature and photography, as well as on postcards and posters. Today, we can look at a tourist poster of a landscape and guess the destination it advertises. The association of a landscape with a country is another result of a deliberate effort to create a nation. In the era of kingdoms, people living in the same territory were divided and known by their social status, religion, or local community membership. In the 18th century, a rich merchant in Rome and a farmer in Sicily had very little in common and would not see themselves as belonging to the same community. That today people are joined together as Italians, Germans, or French is the result of an enormous undertaking in each country to construct a nation by creating a common language, a collective history, and shared traditions.